Hey, how you doing? My name's Chris. Welcome to my shop. You know what? When you make mistakes, you gotta own up to them. And I don't know. I don't have a big enough ego to have the fact that I made a mistake bother me. I guess maybe I'm used to it. Seriously, I made a mistake recently in a video, and several of you pointed it out. And you know what? I appreciate that. Not offended by those kind of remarks and those comments whatsoever. So if you see somebody make a mistake, call them on it. Because I don't mind being called on it. And I'm here today because I want to remedy that mistake. I want to tell you how to fix it and show you a way to help you ensure that you don't make the same mistake. So if you have the time, stick around. I'll get to that next. Okay, so what is this mistake I'm referring to? May remember I did a video a couple weeks back on box joint jig. And don't worry, the box joint jig is fine. I didn't mess up the explanation on that. That thing will work for you. But when I was making these, this box joint jig that I was displaying, a little bit of user error, other words known as Chris is a dummy, came into play. So I tell you what, let's head over to the table saw. I'll show you what I did wrong, and then I'm going to show you how you can make sure you don't do the same thing yourself. Okay, here's the problem that I ran into, and I'm going to show you a quick fix for it in a second. But let me first show you what I did wrong. And here's the deal. When I was putting my first board in, this one here, and I was making that initial cut with the spacer that was in here, remember? Well, the first spacer, first of all, the spacer that I used in that video was bent, and I should have known better. Because rather than line this board up to the bottom of the table, I just kind of made it flush with the bent spacer that I had. And so what happened is this end of this board was off the table by maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/16 at the most. And so I was getting kind of an angled cut as I went through. And then when I put this piece over the top and then brought my second piece in to make a cut, the same thing happened. I compounded the problem. This piece was, again, a little bit of 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch off the table. Not 1/4 of an inch, excuse me, but 1/8 to 1/16. And let me show you what the results of that is. So if you run into this problem, you can identify it and know what your issue is. First of all, here, let me pull in on this. I'll give you a close-up of this joint that I cut during that video, and I'll point out what I'm talking about. Okay, if you look really closely, right over here on this side, use this finger, here we go. If you look at this joint, and the joint comes together fine, but what you want to have happen when you're doing a box joint jig, or when you're doing box joints, period, is you want to have a little bit of a protrusion of the fingers coming off of the side so you can sand it flush to the piece. And that was fine here. That was my initial cut. But as I went along, you can see that the protrusion becomes less, it's flush, and it's actually not protruding now at all. It's actually recessed. And that's the issue that you can run into if you don't start out with your boards square to the table and square at 90 degrees to the fence that you're using. You get what you want the first cut, second cut's a little less, third one is actually flush, but this one is actually recessed, and that's not good. We need to sand all that off. And that's a lot of sanding that you can avoid if you just put the board in there straight to begin with. So how can you make sure that doesn't happen to you? Well, there's been several suggestions. There was a gentleman who was, and it's a good suggestion. Somebody said, draw a 90-degree line up your fence board here so that when you do your first piece, you have something to line it up with and you'll know that it's flush at the bottom of the table. And that's a good suggestion for the first cut. But here's the problem with that. Once you put your first board over the top, that reference line goes away. And then your second board, when you put it in here, you've got no reference line whatsoever. So, good idea for the first cut, but not a real solution. You guys remember a while back, I put out a video called the simplest table saw solution ever. I think I was just playing around with the title. and I use this. And I use this basically to show you how you could use a mirror to set up dado cuts, whether you're doing a rabbet cut or a dado cut in the middle of a board, how this can make it lining up your fence and your board really quickly to the blade. This same little piece of hardware, which by the way, I found in the trash and kind of made a jig out of, can be used here as well. Simply take the mirror, put it in front of your piece. As you're looking down, you'll be able to see whether your board is flush to the table or not, just by looking in that mirror and seeing what you're looking at. Simple, easy solution, but a mirror on a board, you know, clamped on in front of you to let you see things, extremely helpful. And there's another thing that you can make that would make your life a lot easier as well. Now, when I was doing that video, I explained that I was being lazy and I was just using a scrap piece of wood that I had laying around. Didn't bother cutting it down. You don't need a fence this high. If it was down lower, it would allow you to get over the top of it and look down on the base of your table, and you could do it by the eyeball that way. So this fence is going to end up getting cut off. I am going to cut it down lower because it actually makes sense to do so. I was just being lazy that day, so that's what you get for being lazy, right? Anyway, so that was the issue with the box joints in that jig, and it was a user mistake. The jig works fine. The operator, heck, my mother used to question him. Anyway, there you go. That's your fix, and that's the solution if you want to do it yourself. So you guys take care. Don't be afraid to make this jig. It takes like less than a half an hour to do so, and it's an extremely nice joint to have in your wheelhouse to go ahead and make for decoration or just because you want a good, strong joint. You guys take care. Get out in your shops, make that first cut, and I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.